Hello, fellow bookish witches. Welcome to Witchy Reads. Before we get sucked into a liminal space, please make sure to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and please leave a comment if you would like to discuss the book we are going to talk about today. Speaking of which, I am ready to discuss the spine-tingling novella, Let the Woods Keep Our Bodies by E.M. Roy. My picking up this book was actually a little bit of just right place, right time. I happen to follow the publisher Goulish Books on Twitter. I want to say a little over a month ago, they put out a call for ARC reviewers who were interested in maybe picking up this novella and leaving a review in exchange for an ARC. I saw the cover, I read the short blurb synopsis for the novella, and instantly I was entranced. I reached out, and that was how this fell into my lap. Decided to wait to read it until spooky season, so that's what I did. I'm really excited to talk about it. This novella really encompasses a lot of the things I find appealing in the horror genre. It has small town horror, it has cryptids, and the setting takes place in a state where the Appalachian Mountains run through. And if you know anything about the lore surrounding those mountains and the woods, you'll know it's really creepy. The other thing I was really excited about was that it is a Sapphic love story, which I am all for and I want more of. The other fun thing to note is that this is E.M. Roy's debut novel. I will warn anyone who wants to pick up this novella that there is a content warning for both suicide and gore. So if those are things that make you squeamish or uncomfortable or trigger you in any way, just want you to be aware that that is something that does come up in the book. If we want to get super technical, it is a novella because it falls under the 200 page mark, but this is 196 pages. I feel the story is tight enough and well written enough that it could be considered a novel. I think for me, for here on out, I'm just going to refer to it as a novel. I think that's just easiest. The cover isn't anything extraordinary. I think it serves its purpose. I like the almost comic book look to it. I like the color combination. It very much portrays what the story is going to do, which is freak you out. All that to say, with the combination of the synopsis and the cover, I was ready to be spooked. I was ready for the scares. It delivered. Both characters are fleshed out and really well written. You become, as the reader, so engrossed in both of their stories and how they are handling the situation. I also love the setting for this book. It takes place in a small town in Maine with the Appalachian Mountains running through that state, and just everything that Roy adds to the story and the description she has of not just the town but the people who live there. You feel like you are there. I very much felt the claustrophobia from this town. It was incredible. I was blown away at how quickly I was pulled into the story. I personally found this a little hard to read at night on my own. Not to say that it wasn't manageable, but it definitely gives off that aura, which I really, really liked. The way the chapters are structured is also very interesting. The chapters are labeled either before or after based off of an event that happens in the book. So it either is taking place before that event or after that event. I loved it. It made it easy for me as the reader to know when I was in the book, if that makes sense. The story starts with an after chapter. We learn that it has been 3 days since Tate Mulder has gone missing. That is the inciting incident. So either a chapter will take place before Tate's disappearance or after Tate's disappearance. This is so wickedly clever and the perfect way to tell this story. We are in the town of Easton, Maine. Right off the bat, we feel a tension surrounding Tate's disappearance, almost as if no one wants to acknowledge it. They all know it's something that happened and we are trying to locate Tate, but no one wants to acknowledge it. Easton seems to be one of those towns where when anything bad happens, they just want to sweep it under the rug and forget about it. The person we will be following is Leo Bates. She is an 18-year-old high schooler who is trying to deal with the emotions and grief that come from the fact that her girlfriend has gone missing. Tate is her girlfriend. Leo seems to be the one that doesn't like to take risks, almost to the point where she has settled, which isn't necessarily healthy. Maine dealt in absolutes. You got burnt to a crisp, or you lost a toe to frostbite. There was no in between. Leo would rather lose a toe. Shift to a before, and this is where we get a little bit more backstory on Leo and Tate's relationship. We flash back to the beginning of the summer when Leo and Tate started hanging out with each other. Tate is this popular girl at their high school, whereas Leo is more of an outcast. Tate has been watching Leo. Leo obviously is aware of Tate just because of her status at their high school, but she's a little shocked to learn that Tate knows who she is, not only watching her, but noticing the little things. And this is huge for Leo, especially since she really feels invisible in this town. The fact that Tate has watched Leo doesn't come off as creepy. It actually more so comes off as endearing and inquisitive, which I think is just a testament to Roy's writing. That easily could have come off as super creepy. They begin to hang out with each other a lot. Leo is an out lesbian, and she makes it very clear that that is something she has known about herself for a very long time. Doesn't need to be awkward. It's just who she is, and I appreciate that. Things take a real quick shift in Leo and Tate's relationship when Tate comes out to Leo as bisexual. That is the point in their relationship where things change as far as heading towards a romantic path. It had opened the door to a summer of love and obsession, which would always be destined to end with an ache. Leo and Tate officially become girlfriends. Leo begins to discover Tate's obsession with the unexplained, specifically the unexplained occurrences that happen in their town, as well as her fascination with cryptids, Bigfoot, Mothman, things like that. It's not something that just intrigues her. She is obsessed with it.
We're looking for Bigfoot.
We don't know that right off the bat. Much like Leo, we assume it's something that she is just simply interested in. It's a hobby. We realize the level of her obsession along with Leo. Leo just seems to roll with this hobby of Tate's. It's mainly just because Leo is infatuated with her and really wants to get to know her, and she just assumes that this is not a big deal. If Tate had something remotely traumatic happen to her in the past, Leo wanted to know. It could be a thread of similarity that would tie them closer together, sure, but it could also be one of the many keys to unlock one of the many locks that seemed to bar Tate from Leo's understanding. She wanted to know her, as selfish as that may be. One of the big things that Tate is obsessed with uncovering is this belief that something sinister lurks within the woods around Easton, Maine. Figuring out what is in the woods and what is the supernatural force around the town. In an after chapter, Leo is taken in by the police. She is now considered a prime suspect. This is mainly to do with the fact that she was the last person to see Tate before she disappeared. Totally makes sense that she would be a suspect, especially since she is the girlfriend. The local cops feel like this is out of their depth, so they bring in a city cop from Boston, Detective Ander.
Tibet.
He immediately wants Leo to confess to something, even though they have no evidence. Everyone seems to be acting that Tate is dead, and at this point, she's just a missing person. Leo very strongly believes that she is alive. Detective Ander also suspects Leo because of some violent occurrences in her past. Her aunt suspects her of being involved as well. And Leo is adamant to both the cops and her aunt and uncle that she would never do anything to hurt Tate because she loves her. As you read this, you believe her. Never once did I suspect that Leo did anything intentionally to Tate. Although it is suspicious when it is revealed that Leo can't remember much of the night Tate was last seen. She knows that she was the last one to see Tate before she went missing, but she cannot remember that last interaction, and that terrifies her. She doesn't admit that to anybody. As the reader, you are scared with her. Not only now do we need to figure out what happened to Tate, but a part of that is figuring out what happened that last night that they were together. It is also suspected by a few of the townspeople, a few of the cops, that perhaps Tate ran away. The big reason why Leo doesn't believe this is because they are in love, and if that is the case, then Leo has to deal with a different kind of grief in that Tate abandoned her. She just doesn't want to believe that. She literally would rather deal with the grief of Tate missing and maybe something sinister happening to her versus the idea of Tate just straight up abandoning her. Even though Leo's aunt is suspicious of her, it's implied that her uncle isn't suspicious and actually believes her, though he doesn't speak up or say anything to come to Leo's defense, which is frustrating. There is a trope where there is an elderly couple and the elderly female is bigoted, and you have this elderly male who is her husband or something to that effect. And while he disagrees with her, the female is louder. Her points get made across. A wink and a nudge. I don't agree with her. They don't stand up for the person. That is a little compliant. I really don't like that trope that they've done with a lot of elderly male characters. I feel like it would be a lot more impactful if those characters actually stood up and were a voice for those that are being spoken over. Because her uncle does believe her in his own way, both he and his wife come down to the police station when Leo is being interrogated, and they attempt to help her. Leo's aunt makes it very clear that she is suspicious of Leo. Her uncle shakes his head or like does something where it implies that he doesn't agree, but doesn't say anything. And when Leo is upset by the fact that her family, her only family that she has, by the way, because her aunt and uncle raised her, believes that she would do something to Tate and demands that they leave, he says nothing and just lets it happen and leaves. They ask Detective Ander if Leo is being placed under arrest, and he says no. He says that they are just having a conversation, but it wouldn't look good if Leo left. If you were ever in a situation and the cops have not arrested you, you have not been read your rights, and they just want to speak to you, you can leave whenever you want. It does not matter if they claim it's going to look bad. It does not matter. You have every right to leave. They cannot stop you unless they want to arrest you. You can leave. Also, too, if you are in this situation, lawyer up immediately. Say nothing. The first things out of your mouth should be, I want my lawyer, or just lawyer. It is so surprising to me that so few people know that about our legal system. When I tell you the full body tension and anger I had when Detective Ander said that if she leaves, if Leo leaves, it would look bad. I was angry. You can leave if you're not being arrested. Always, always ask for a lawyer. Don't overthink it. Just do it. We flash back once again to before, and this time we get a little more context as far as the violent encounter that Leo had with another high schooler. He makes really disgusting comments about Leo and Tate's relationship, and then he makes some subtle remarks about Leo's parents being involved in the murder of his aunt and uncle, I believe, is how he was connected to those characters. Either way, what ultimately sends Leo over the edge is him implying that Leo's mother was crazy and she must be headed down that same path.
Finally, a good reason to punch a teenager in the face!
Oh my god, does she retaliate in the most badass way? She punched him. A satisfying crack rippled across Jonathan's cheekbone, and Leo could feel his teeth crunch against her knuckles from the inner side of his cheek. The boy looked surprised, did a half spin with the momentum. This boy was sucker punched so hard, he did a 360 and fell to the floor. Bravo. Bravo, Leo. This is the incident that is reported to the police incorrectly, since Jonathan, the boy, gets to them first and files essentially a false report. He makes it seem like Leo was the instigator and just attacked him, which just is not true at all. This also causes Leo's aunt to set a rule. She doesn't want Leo spending more time with Tate. It really reads as a very lame attempt to keep two love-struck teenagers away from each other. It was always bound to fail. In the aftertime, Detective Ander lets Leo know that Tate's mother had found a notebook in Tate's room when she went to go look for her. It was open to a certain page. At this point, we don't know what's in this notebook, though we feel the fear that Leo has at the detective mentioning the notebook. There is something important about that notebook. The notebook is really just Tate's jumbled notes, findings about the things she is obsessed with about the town. There's newspaper clippings, there's handwritten notes from Tate. This is where she keeps all of that information. Unsolved true crime stories in New England, a paragraph about the Salem witch trials, UFO sightings, and part of an essay with a thesis explaining the societal implications of urban legends. Another thing that happens during this time is the detective refers to both Leo and Tate as little girls.
Okay.
Ick, but totally in line with the character. I was really hoping that this was going to be a detective that would be of assistance. He is just a gross man. Unfortunately, when Tate's mom found the notebook in Tate's room, it was open to a very specific page involving the deaths of Ava Bates and her boyfriend Kenneth. These are Leo's parents. Not only are Leo's parents dead, they died in such a way they warranted a 2-page fold in Tate's notebook. Now we have just mystery upon mystery getting added. We flash back again to before, only this time we are way in the past. What happened with Ava and Kenneth, Leo's parents. Ava Bates had taken a Swiss Army knife she'd had since she was a teenager, led her partner into the woods a mile or so behind their house, closer to the road on the other side, which was technically across the town line, without a single sign of struggle from Kenneth, and vertically slit both of their wrists. That is how Ava and Kenneth died. It was a very gruesome murder. When young Leo is told that her parents are dead, she takes a kitchen knife to the cop who relayed the information and just shoves it all the way into his shoulder. That is also in the police file. She was a child and she just got the absolute worst news that any child could possibly get. We get back to Leo and Tate's relationship during the summer. Tate takes Leo to the woods behind the town cemetery and shows her a doorway, supposedly a doorway to the crypts below the cemetery. Tate has brought them out there because she wants to try and commune with whatever force is there, because she believes that this is the epicenter of all things weird in Easton. She convinces Leo to sit with her with a Ouija board, and it causes the door to partially open, but in doing that, it almost causes like a vacuum, and things begin to suck into the door. Tate is in this trance. Leo immediately freaks out, rightfully so. She doesn't run. She doesn't abandon Tate. She's trying to get Tate out of this trance that she's in. Eventually, the door shuts and collapses in on itself like a cave-in. Now there is no door. It's more just like splintered wood and messed up stone where a door used to be. Once Tate is out of her trance and they're both safe, Leo finally seems to take in the level with which Tate is obsessed with this stuff. It quite frankly scares her. She doesn't really know how to cope. She doesn't want to leave Tate. She would also be lying if she didn't say she was scared by Tate's obsession. Leo sees Tate's notebook. Tate actively tried to hide the couple of pages that she had about Leo's parents. The big problem with that is there not only were newspaper clippings, but there were crime scene photos that Leo had never seen before. She had these nightmares of what the crime scene looked like, and these pictures were proof that her nightmares were real. It triggers her, to be quite honest. This isn't some of your urban legend bullshit or a conspiracy. This really happened. Tate comes clean with something that happened around the same time that Leo's parents died. One day, a young Tate wandered off into the woods and got lost. She was lost for a few days, and the information given to the public was that she was found next to the corpse of a deer. Tate reveals that no, it wasn't the carcass of a deer. I saw my own corpse. What she's saying is that she saw her older self dead. In addition to wanting to solve the weirdness that is the town, part of that is also solving what she saw and trying to prevent it. As sort of a gesture and wanting to also protect Tate from that memory, Leo rips the pages out of her notebook. We jump again to the current time, if you will. We join Leo. She is being released from the police station. She's in panic mode now. She needs to find the ripped out pages from the notebook. It would look bad if she had the ripped pages because it would almost look like she had something to hide. Leo is on her way home. It's evening. She encounters a black dog. This is one of those creatures mentioned in Tate's notebook. She knows it to be a harbinger of death. Immediately, she begins to freak out, to worry that she is running out of time. Her big thing is, well, if I'm going to die, the last thing I am going to do is find Tate and save her. She manages to make it home. The ripped pages from the notebook she has been keeping in a shoebox under her bed. The only thing she does is she takes it out, folds it, and puts it in her pocket. Back to before, we get a very cute intimate scene with Leo and Tate. They make it back to Tate's house and they spend the night together. It's just very sweet. It's very young love. A lot of these scenes, including this one, really had me tearing up as far as just their relationship. It's so nice that Roy has this way of conveying both the creepiness that is happening in the story and their sweet love story. It doesn't feel disjointed. It makes sense and flows well within the story. During this sweet moment, Tate admits to Leo her deeper reasoning for wanting to solve the unexplained occurrences happening through Easton. Honestly, I get it. I'm with Tate as far as why she wants to do what she's doing. She feels there is a force that is keeping people in Easton, and it's almost as if they can't escape. These weird things happen to prevent people from leaving the town. She wants to have the choice. I feel like that's fair. She almost has this dark appreciation for the weird occurrences. She just wants to know more. It's one thing to be forced to live in the dark. It's another thing to accept the dark and understand the dark. Tate wants to understand the darkness because I think there's more to every story, even the ones we think we have all the answers to. Jump back to present time in an after chapter with Leo in her room with the ripped pages from the notebook. She has an epiphany. She feels like even though she can't remember the last night she was with Tate, she thinks she has a pretty good idea of where Tate is. She leaves her house with her pet dog. It's a bigger dog. Her aunt briefly tries to stop her, doubles down on the fact that she thinks that she is involved in Tate's disappearance, and she feels it would be best for Leo to keep a low profile. We shift back to the past. Since Tate and Leo spent that night together, Leo's aunt has been like a hawk, not allowing her to see Tate. Leo decides the next best thing to try and understand what Tate is trying to do is to go to the local library. Tate had taken Leo there once before and shown her some old volumes and records. Leo decides, okay, if I am going to truly understand what is happening, since Tate is letting information drip out like a slow leaking faucet, I'm just gonna go figure this out on my own. She finds a separate stash of more clippings, actual books, VHS tapes of information that Tate has gathered. It's essentially stuff that's too big for her to lug around. The notebook is more the portable version, and this is essentially just more evidence. Leo discovers the accident that occurred with her parents and the Talbot twins back when they were in high school. This is what Jonathan, the one who attacked Leo, was referring to. The Talbot twins and Kenneth and Ava were in the woods. A cave-in happened. The Talbot twins were killed in the collapse, and Kenneth and Ava managed to survive. Tate shows up at the library, and Leo rightfully begins to ask some follow-up questions as far as the information that she's just gotten. Tate reveals that she believes that the doorway is a liminal space. She kind of views it as a black hole, the epicenter, as I said, of everything that's unexplained in Easton, Maine. She explains to Leo that, hey, the doorway where the Talbot twins were killed in that cave-in is the same doorway we were at that also collapsed. Leo makes a point of saying, well, that can't be true because the cave-in from the 90s, there's no information about if the town fixed the door. And even if they had, we now know that it is collapsed again. We saw it collapse. Tate makes a point of saying, well, if it's a liminal space, if it's what I think it is, it would be able to heal itself. And I think that's what it did. They both agree to go back to the woods and just confirm or deny if Tate's theory is correct. So they both arrive at the woods and they see the doorway intact, which proves that Tate is correct. It is essentially a black hole and it has healed itself. Tate's reaction to seeing that the door has healed itself is that she's immediately like, I want to go inside. I want to know what's going on. This is finally where Leo puts her foot down and goes, absolutely not. We are not doing that. You aren't going in there. I am not going in there. This ends now.
Oh, hell no!
I get you're obsessed with this, but this is too much. Where Tate looked into the abyss and saw potential, the comfort of certainty, Leo looked and saw a pair of eyes staring back at them, and the eyes were angry. We are now starting the climax, and I'm just going to, again, warn you, this is where a lot of the gore comes in, but this is also the most fun that you will have with this story. We are in present time. We are in an after chapter. Leo has arrived at the cemetery because she believes that even though she can't remember, Tate went back to the door and went through the door. Detective Ander arrives at the cemetery before Leo can venture into the woods, and he immediately demands a confession from her. He doesn't seem like himself. He seems to be coming off as way more of an asshole than he was at the police station. It's not really clear if Leo's completely picking up on it. She does start to feel a little sketched out by the way he's acting, especially that he's demanding that she confess to essentially murdering Tate, even though, again, at this point, Tate is just a missing person. There is no body, no evidence to suggest that she is dead. Then, as if straight out of an Eldritch horror, leeches, I want to say like leeches the size of your forearm, erupt from Detective Anders' torso and just tear him to shreds. Initially, you're like, okay, what is happening? Are these leeches going to now attack Leo? And the answer is yes. But thankfully, her loyal pup shapeshifts into the black dog. Her dog is the black dog. Even though black dogs can be harbingers of death, they can also help people and have been known to assist with saving lost people. This scene is very bloody, very gory. You have the leeches erupting from Detective Ander. You have Leo's dog shapeshifting into a black dog and attacking the leeches. There is a lot going on and it's messy. Leo and her dog manage to make it away from Detective Ander and the leeches. I mean, Detective Ander is pretty much dead at this point. They make it through the woods and they arrive at the doorway. She opens the door, looks inside. Ahead of her, the cave was a sore throat, the walls rough and cracked, leading down into some resentful stomach. Leo enters the darkness that her flashlight can barely penetrate, if at all, and she begins to walk down the passage. At some point, she finds an inscription on the wall that says Darkness Visible 1995. That was the name of her parents' band with the Talbot twins. 1995 was the year that the Talbot twins were killed in the cave-in. Flashback to the past once more, but again, this time we're going way in the past with Ava and Kenneth, Leo's parents. We see the entire scene when the cave-in happened. The Talbot twins were taking them to this really cool place that they found in the woods, which turns out to be the doorway. They say, oh, maybe you guys can hang out here when we're gone, because the Talbot twins have been accepted to a university out of state, so they will be leaving. We are seeing this entire scene from the POV of Ava, and so we feel her emotions about that, the fact that she kind of is resentful that her and Kenneth aren't able to leave Easton. The Talbot twins are getting out. It's crappy. This is not the life that she envisioned. All four teenagers head down into the passage. One of the Talbot twins takes out a knife and inscribes Darkness Visible 1995 on the side of the wall. They hang out a little bit. They smoke some weed. And then they start to hear the rumblings in the cave. They all run for the exit. The cave-in happens really quickly. The Talbot twins fall behind and are engulfed by the crumbling walls. Kenneth and Ava survive. It's essentially survivor's guilt in a way that Ava succumbs to. The assumption with all of this is that the town is absolutely refusing to let people leave. The Talbot twins were leaving for college and the town couldn't allow that. So the cave-in happened. Ava and Kenneth were found just over the town line in the woods. They had tried to leave and the town wouldn't let them. It's very dark and it's interesting. Realize that was very much Tate's goal from the beginning, was to find out the source of what is keeping everybody in Easton, remove that, destroy it, so that she could leave. Her character talked all the time about running away, but she can't until she deals with whatever is keeping people in Easton. We jump forward a little bit in time, back to when Tate and Leo went back to the door. This is now why Tate decides, I need to go in the door. This is not enough to sit outside. I need to go in and figure out what is causing this. This is the last night that Tate and Leo were together before Tate disappeared. Leo justifiably becomes really angry with Tate. She just refuses to let go of this obsession, to the point where it's almost ruining her. You don't get to use me to solve your own existential crisis. You don't get to use me and my trauma to satisfy some neurotic fantasy. Leo, up to this point, has stuck by Tate throughout all of this. And it's at this moment that Leo just can't take it anymore. She leaves Tate standing at the door. This is the memory that she forgot, almost as if the force, whatever supernatural, sinister element in the town, wanted her to forget that because Tate did go through the door, and now Leo needs to get her. Back to after we are with Leo, she is in the passageway and she continues to walk into the darkness. Then all of a sudden, things shift and she's in this alternate dark version of the public library. She heads up to the restricted section where Tate was keeping all of her information, and when she gets there, the world around her shifts again, and she ends up in Tate's bedroom. She sees the notebook open on Tate's bed. She walks over to it and she already knows like where it's open to, and it's the pages that Leo had ripped out. She takes the ripped pieces of paper that are in her pocket and she places them down on the book. They seem to fuse back into the notebook so that it is complete again. All of a sudden, a possessed Detective Ander shows up. He looks a mess because it is now the version of him after the leeches have been done with him. This legion of leeches following him. She backs away into the room. Her world shifts again. She ends up in a bigger cave, sees Tate hanging from the cave wall in a tangle of vines that are keeping her there. Leo manages to release Tate from her bindings. She's weak. She's been there now for 3 days. She tries to apologize for not listening to Leo, for going through the doorway. Leo's like, not the time. We don't need to worry about it. We don't need to have this discussion right now. Like, we gotta go. Leo takes Tate. World shifts. We're back in Tate's bedroom. Shifts again. We're back in the library. And then they're having to face Detective Ander and the leeches. But then, who comes to their rescue? The skeletal version of the Talbot twins, which is very cool. The Talbot twins essentially step in between Leo and Tate and Detective Ander and the leeches. Basically are like, we got this, you gotta go, get out. You know, this is like your only shot, go. Leo and Tate take off through the library, shifts again back into the passageway that is leading to the doorway to the outside. When Leo came in, she did wedge her skateboard into the door so that it wouldn't shut. Her dog didn't come into the passage with her because the dog was scared. The dog is waiting for them outside the door. As they're running, the rumbling starts to happen again, that a cave-in is happening. They're frantically trying to get through the passage. The walls are caving in. It's a catastrophe. She sees the light coming through the crack of where her skateboard is. She yells for her dog, who has shapeshifted to the black dog version again, and starts just ripping the wood panels off the door. Tate and Leo burst through the doorway. The doorway caves in. It basically gets sucked in on itself, and it's as if no door was ever there. The black hole has collapsed. Both Tate and Leo feel the release of whatever was keeping them in town. Some time goes by. We are with Leo again. She's in her front yard. And much like their first encounter, Tate appears to speak with Leo. They are pretty certain that whatever force was there has been destroyed, and now people can leave Easton freely without worrying about dying. Tate can leave and do what she has always dreamed of. And now Leo's options have opened. She doesn't have to settle for staying in Easton. They both want to explore that. And in order to do that, they both agree that it would be better for them to go their separate ways. It's not a sad situation. To me, this whole interaction felt just very bittersweet, a mature reaction to everything that they've been through. The vast majority of young adult relationships end a lot messier than ours is ending. Well, the vast majority of relationships don't have to deal with cryptids and liminal spaces, or towns that don't let you leave. Sounds boring, Leo sniffed. Leo and Tate say goodbye, knowing that they have accomplished what they set out to do. They have essentially freed their town, and now they're free to live their lives. Both Leo and Tate are such well-written, well-rounded, characters. They carry such a depth to their personalities, which are very distinctly separate from each other. You are engaged with Tate and her obsession with the unexplained, and you are engaged with Leo trying to navigate her life in this town that she thought she knew and everything that she learns along the way. I think their dynamic is adorable and is something that should definitely be praised as a genuine young adult romance. A lot of their issues were outward issues. There wasn't a lot of angst. And while, yes, there was some communicative issues in their relationship, it was nothing that didn't seem far-fetched for two love-struck teenagers. It made sense to me. It was a refreshing take, and I appreciated that. Leo's loyalty and compassion for Tate is so gosh darn heartwarming that even though this is a horror story, she is the reason that a lot of their interactions got me to tear up. I thought even though a lot of really crazy stuff is happening, there were some genuine sweet moments, and a lot of that is attributed to the character of Leo, and I really appreciated that. She also is incredibly brave. Leo is definitely someone you want by your side. Tate. I loved Tate's obsessive behavior. It very much was the yin to Leo's yang, getting the reader really invested and involved in what was happening. I found that very engrossing. It was very entertaining to read. There are a lot of lines that Tate crosses as far as not really understanding the implications of her research affecting others, namely Leo, and that causes issues for them. But you also see her grow in that. She takes what Leo says to heart. Even though she doesn't really stop her obsession, she has an obligation to fix the wrongs in Easton more so than she is trying to disregard and ignore Leo's warnings. Easton, Maine. I thought the setting for the story was very well chosen. The townspeople work, Tate's mom, Leo's aunt and uncle, her parents, blended seamlessly into the story. Easton, Maine sounds like a very creepy town. It very much sounds like a town where a lot of true crime could be happening. I thoroughly enjoyed every moment of this story. The writing grips you immediately and does not let you go. The way Roy introduces you to both Leo and Tate makes you feel like you genuinely get to know them, from them meeting all the way to their bittersweet end. The queer love story that weaves its way through the narrative is lovely despite the chaos happening all around. Tate and Leo's relationship greatly depicts a young adult romance. There were many moments where I got choked up at their interactions together. It was just very sweet. I enjoyed how the story unfolded, with the chapters going from before and after, with the focal point being Tate's disappearance. I think it worked very well and allowed the story to weave and flow and just be this great narrative. I never felt confused. I always knew when I was in the story. The reader was given just enough information to keep us invested and wanting us to know more. It snags you, man. This book is dark with some heavy imagery, so just be aware of that. A lot of the darker imagery did stick with me for quite a bit after reading it. If you are someone who is easily triggered by that kind of thing, I wouldn't, dissuade you from reading this book. Just be aware that some things may sit with you for a bit. The last 15% of the book might have you white-knuckling the book cover. I rated Let the Woods Keep Our Bodies 5 out of 5 stars, and I feel like it earned every single one of them. As of October 10th of this year, the book is officially published. I cannot recommend this book more. I think if you are a horror fan, it is the perfect quick read to give you that nice scare. Thank you for going on this spooky journey with me. I had a lot of fun reading this book, and I can't wait to see if you out there have read the book and what you think about it. Were you as freaked out as I was? Did you enjoy it as well? What do you think? Please, I would love to know. If you have read the book and you'd like to discuss it, please feel free to comment down below or reach out to me on my Twitter or Instagram. I have both. This is Witchy Reads saying I will see you at the next book review.